Hi, my name is Ashley and this is Crafty with Ashley. Today I'm going to go over how to make this crocheted ruffled princess toddler dress. I created this dress pattern for my daughter's 1-year birthday for her cake smash photos, and I just love that she looked so frilly and adorable while destroying that cake. I also love that I have those pictures that I can give to her along with the dress, and maybe one day she'll even have a daughter of her own and she can give her daughter the dress and then it can become kind of an heirloom item. So below you'll find a link to the pattern for this dress, and I'm going to go through how to make the dress. I'm not going to go round by round because that would take forever and nobody really has time to watch that long of a video, but I will give you some tips and information to help you complete the dress with the pattern that is provided. So we'll go over kind of how to start it, how to add on the sleeves, and just some of the terminology that I use for creating the full skirt, and maybe some tips on how to make adjustments if you need to for size. So let's go ahead and get on with how to actually make the dress. All right, so some of the materials that you'll need to make this dress. You will need yarn. I used Lion Brand's Pound of Love yarn, but if you choose to use something else, it is a weight 4 acrylic yarn. I did take approximately like 15 ounces or 975 yards. There is a lot of yarn in this dress and it is pretty heavy, but it's because the skirt is so full. So you'll need that, and then you will need 2 different crochet hooks. For the bodice, I used a size I 5.5 millimeter hook, and then for the skirt, I went up to a size J or 6 millimeter hook. And the reason I did this was so that the bodice was a little bit tighter stitches and didn't have as much give to it, whereas the dress is going to have, the skirt part's going to have a lot of fullness and flowiness, so I wanted it to have kind of a looser stitch. You will need some stitch markers. I use bobby pins for this, just straight up hair bobby pins, and you'll want to mark in your beginning chain where to put your sleeves, and we'll go over that. And then I use a darning needle to weave in all my ends. I find it easier than using a crochet hook, but by all means, if you normally use a crochet hook to weave in your ends, go for it. But I do like to use my darning needles. And that's really all you need to make the pattern. So let's go ahead and move on to how to do it. All right, so for this tutorial, I'm going to use this light colored yarn. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. And then I'm going to start with my slip knot, just kind of a basic start to our crochet. And we're going to start with the top of the bodice, and the pattern says chain 56, but it does specify in there that you'll want to place your stitch markers for where the straps are going to go in chain 9, 20, 36, and 47. So just as you're counting, go ahead and throw that stitch marker in there so that you don't have to go back and count them later. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's where it says to put the first stitch marker. So I get my makeshift stitch markers of bobby pins and slide it right through that chain. And then I'll just keep going. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And that's where the next one goes. And then I'm just going to keep going around until I get to the end. All right, so I am at 56 chains. Now I'm going to lay my chain flat and make sure that there's no twists in it, because I'm going to join to my first chain. And you want to make sure your chain is flat. You do that. So we're going to do this, and we are going to come back here and we're going to join it to the first chain with a slip stitch. And there you have started your bodice. Now the rest of the bodice is worked in just double crochet rounds. So you're going to chain 2 for your first double crochet, crochet 55 more double crochets around, so it'll be 56 total counting the first chain 2, and then you're just going to slip stitch to the top of the double crochet at the end of each row or round so that you create some length to the bodice. So we'll chain 2, and that does count as the first, so then you're skipping that first chain and you're gonna come into the second chain for your next double crochet, and then we're just going to do that all the way around, and that is actually the next 6 rounds. So go ahead and do that. So I've done just 1 round of double crochets. Now you would keep going and do through round 6 of double crochets, and then at round 7 you're actually going to do single crochets all the way around, and that kind of defines the skirt and the bodice just a little bit more. But I'm going to kind of go on to what we're going to do on the skirt now, just to show you some of the stitches that I use for that. So I do have in the pattern the notes for the special stitches that I use, and so you can look at those as well. But basically it's going to be V stitches and shells, and I use just double and treble crochets for all of these, and I designate which of those it is. So for a V stitch, you're going to usually start with a chain 2 for a double crochet, and then you're going to chain 1 more, and then you're going to double crochet in that same space. Okay, and then it'll create what looks like a V there for you to then work typically a shell into throughout the pattern. Now if I say to do a treble crochet V stitch, it's basically the same thing, except instead of a double crochet you're going to use a treble crochet. So for this first round, after I say to do a V stitch, then to do a double crochet in the next stitch, and so you just do a double crochet, and then for your next V stitch you're going to just do a double crochet into that next stitch, and then chain 1, and then do another double crochet in that same space. And this is how we start getting some of the fullness, because we're adding extra stitches, we're adding some spaces to get a little bit of the lacy effect, and then we're going to work into those spaces as we go on. So that's the double crochet V stitch. Now I'll show you a treble crochet V stitch here also. So for the treble crochet V stitch, instead of doing a double crochet into the next stitch, we're going to do a treble. So you yarn over twice, you insert hook and pull through, and then yarn over, and you're going to pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So it's just going to make a taller V. Then you're still going to do a chain 1, and then you're going to do another treble crochet into the same stitch, and it's just going to create a kind of taller, more open, loose, flowy V stitch instead of these little bit of a tighter V stitch with just the double crochets. Now when we go and are starting to work some shells, I will specify in there to do 5 double crochets, or anywhere between 5 and 9 double crochets into the V stitch chain space. So when you do those, you're not working into any stitch, you're actually going to work into the hole that's created by your V. So either the treble crochet V, or if we look back at this one, the double crochet V. So you're actually going to work stitches into that hole, and it's going to create a shell or a fan-like appearance. So if I do that, then I'm going to do double crochets, and I'm going to put 5 of them here. And then typically there's going to be some stitch to anchor it, so usually a single crochet, and I'm going to kind of anchor that shell down with a single crochet, and then it's going to kind of create this fan or shell appearance on top of that V. All right, so if we keep going in the pattern then and just kind of work our way down, then we talk about getting some working V-stitches into the shells. And so when I talk about that, it will designate where you should work the stitch into that shell. So let me just throw another shell in here really quick. So there I have a shell with 5 double crochets. So sometimes it'll say to work a V-stitch into the 3rd double crochet or into a chain space, and you're just going to then work that stitch into wherever it says. And I tried to be really specific on the pattern so that you could really tell exactly where you're putting that stitch. So for example, if we go down to round 10 where it talks about doing the V-stitches into the shells or in between the shells, it has do a V-stitch into a single crochet, and then you're going to work a single crochet into the 3rd double crochet of the shell. So once I get to that shell, I'm gonna do, there's 1, 2, and there's my 3rd double crochet. So I'm gonna go ahead and work my single crochet there, and then I'm gonna do a V-stitch into the single crochet that's between the 2 shells. So I do my double crochet, I chain 1, and then I do another double crochet, and that creates that V-stitch. And then again it says to put a single crochet into the next, that 3rd stitch of the shell, and that will, I kind of think of it as anchoring the stitch down. So you have your anchor to the top of the shell, and then you have the V-stitch which kind of filled the space between the 2 shells, and then you're anchoring again. So if you just keep going down and keep looking at that, you'll see that it's really just a repeat of doing rounds of V-stitches and rounds of shells. And the V-stitches might be treble crochet V-stitches or double crochet V-stitches, which is designated there. And then the shells are sometimes 5. And then once I get down toward the bottom, if I grab the dress that I already have made, you'll see that these shells are quite a bit bigger, and they have actually groups of a lot more double crochets. So this actually has a group of 5 and then a chain and then 5 more, and that's giving it this really full look. And then at the very bottom, this is just 9 double crochets into that shell just to get that really full frilly skirt look. So you just keep working around in circles until you get the length that you want, or through all of the pattern if this is a good length for you. Now if your child is a little bit smaller, or you want the dress to be a little bit shorter, you can stop really whenever you want on these rounds, and then I would go ahead and go back and do basically the last 2 rows anyway to get kind of the little frill on the very bottom, but you don't have to. You could just end it wherever you want to get the right length. And then after you get through the length of the skirt, you're gonna come back to the bodice and add the sleeves on. So let me go over that, because that's the part that I think is the trickiest when you're reading the pattern, to kind of get a picture of what we're doing. But it's really similar actually to the rest of the dress, because you're creating shells to get kind of a ruffled sleeve effect. But the way that I kind of anchored it into the dress itself made them a little bit more sturdy. Instead of just being connected to one stitch, they're connected to a couple. That way it's not pulling too much on one stitch and causing some extra stretching just in that one spot. So let me get out the round that I had, and I will go over how to add those straps. Okay, so now we're back at the top of the bodice. The rest of the dress is, in theory, done, and we're gonna come back and add our straps. So we are gonna come back and we put the stitch markers. This is in the 9th, the 20th, you know, etc. And we're gonna add our strap. We're gonna start with this side, which is the right strap, and we're gonna start in the front. So that's at the 20th chain, so where that stitch marker is, and we're going to join our yarn there, leaving a tail to weave in and secure that end. And then we're just going to chain 13. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. Now you're going to join this stitch to this chain to the stitch at the 9th, the stitch marker at the 9th chain, and I'm just gonna slip stitch that from the inside to the outside there, and we have created our strap for the right side. And then we're gonna go in and add now the ruffles to that strap. But if you wanted to, if you like the simplicity of a spaghetti strap, you can leave it like that and just fasten it off. But in the pattern, it does discuss how to create that ruffled sleeve. And so we're going to now actually single crochet 1 to the stitch right next to where we did the slip stitch to join the strap, and we're going to single crochet there, and this just kind of anchors that strap down, makes it a little bit more sturdy, and broadens kind of where that stretch is from the strap a little bit. Now we're going to skip, so now we're actually crocheting into the chain, so that we did our 1 single crochet to the bodice, slip stitch, and then 1 single crochet to the bodice, and now we're going to come back and crochet into this chain, and we are going to skip 1, and then we'll single crochet into each of the other chains. So we're just going to single crochet across, skipping the first one. So that gets us 12 single crochets in the chain plus that 1 single crochet that we attached to the bodice. And then for this side, you want to anchor it as well, and you're going to slip stitch to the stitch that's just above or toward the armhole part of the dress. So let's slip stitch into that stitch here. Helps if I get my yarn on the right side. All right, let's slip stitch there. All right, and then we have kind of our anchor on this side now too. So then we're going to turn and work again into the strap. And you're going to first just skip this first stitch where we were. Okay, so we're gonna skip the first one, and then we're gonna do 9 double crochets into the next stitch. So just throw 9 double crochets there. Oops, my yarn is fighting with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you see that's basically one of our shells that we've been doing, and then you're gonna skip the next stitch, you're gonna slip stitch into the next, and this again is just kind of an anchor stitch to pull it down, and then you're gonna skip and you're gonna do 9 double crochets again. Okay, and then you're gonna skip, slip stitch, skip, and do 9 more. And then you're gonna skip and you're gonna slip stitch to that one. And that creates your strap, and then you can just kind of fasten it off there and tie it off. And then that creates your ruffly strap for your dress. After you create your first strap, you're just going to go back and you're going to do the other side, and you're going to do exactly the same thing, except you're going to work from back to front so that the ruffles are pointed out just like this one. And then you just fasten off, you weave in all your ends, and your dress is completed at that point. Congratulations! I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for the Crochet Ruffled Princess Toddler dress. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I would really love to see if you do make one of them, your finished product. So throw some pictures in the comments. If you have any questions, also you can go ahead and ask in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you quickly with those answers. If you'd like more inspiration, just go ahead and subscribe to Crafty with Ashy channel to see all of my videos. Thank you again so much. Have a great day.